Your Humanities Half Hour is brought to you by the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.
Hapaday Zentaro, welcome to Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry, and today we're starting something a little bit different here on the show. We wanted to take this opportunity during this time of quarantine and social distancing to remind ourselves that we're all connected in the world and reach out to some of our friends who are no longer here in the Marianas, living elsewhere in the world, and reconnect with them. And it's our pleasure today to have on the show Dr. Kit Porter Van Meter. She's joining us to share some of her memories about being here in the Marianas in the 1960s with the Peace Corps, and also some of her other work related to the Marianas and Micronesia. Dr. Kit, good afternoon to you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here with you. Just too bad it's under these virus circumstances.
Well, you know, they say every challenge is an opportunity, so I started asking people, who can we talk to that used to be here that could share some good stories, and your name came up. You're there in Massachusetts. How are you guys doing?
We're doing fine. Massachusetts thinks that we're just starting to peak. I personally do not know anybody who's gotten ill.
Oh, that's great. That's great. You originally were here in the 1960s with the Peace Corps. First of all, what made you decide to join the Peace Corps?
Well, my first influence was my grandfather. He was a theosopher and believed in world connection and world peace, and encouraged me to work in a world environment. And then I was influenced by the President Kennedy and listening to him speak and the start of the Peace Corps. My college major was English and education, and I had taught for a year, and Peace Corps was looking for English teachers, especially in Micronesia. So those things came together, and I applied and was accepted.
Now, did you get to choose to go to Rota, or was that your assignment?
When we were trained on the island of Udat, and I was originally assigned to go to Truk, or now Chuk, but because I had experience, the Marianas people came and got me in a rainstorm and moved me from the Chuk group to the Marianas group. And then when I landed in Saipan, they had decided that I would go to Rota because I had experience and wouldn't need too much supervision. But the priest did not want somebody on the island who wasn't Catholic. So I had to agree to not to discuss birth control and to not discuss any religions other than Catholic. Wow. In order to have permission to be on Rota.
Wow. So what were your first impressions when you got there?
Oh, it was just beautiful. I mean, we had been in difficult... The training in Truk was the first in-country training, and there were lots of problems, and I had gotten sick, and Rota was beautiful, like I think we called it the Garden Island. We actually had running water and electricity, which we hadn't had during training, and everybody was so warm and welcoming. Just the next day, I think, or 2 days later, started teaching at the school. The community had, there was a house that nobody was living in, and they made that available for us. But it was a mess. The Boy Scouts, a whole little Boy Scout troop came and fixed it up for us. Wow. Cleaned it, got it ready for us. Peace Corps gave us $90 a month for salary. Oh, actually, I think the community paid us that. I'm not sure now that I'm saying that. Um, and we weren't allowed to have a vehicle as volunteers. We couldn't have a truck or a motorcycle or anything. So people were great about taking us places. And of course, Rhoda back then just had the one village, Song Song Village, down where the neck is.
What do you remember about the locals that you worked with during that time?
Well, I worked with first and second grade and some other grades depending on the needs. So Fortunato Manglonia and Lydia Tysican were the first grade teachers. And the first year I prepared and taught and they observed me. And then in the afternoon we had lessons together. And then the second year I watched them teach and gave them feedback. The second grade teachers, Carmen Tymanow and Lupi Adelig, and these are all wonderful people. Later in my career, I worked more with Carmen and Lydia, and and Isaac Calvo was the principal, and he was such a caring man about his school, you know. He took me aside. I wasn't allowed to speak Chamorro, not that I spoke it very well, because his teachers needed to know English. And we had to wear shoes. We weren't allowed to wear stories, but you couldn't buy, only thing you could buy on the island were stories. So we had to get somebody who went to Guam to buy me ladies' leather shoes. And I have a size 9 foot, so it was hard to get my size, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But so pretty much my main work was with the school there, and then working with the youth group and just whatever else came up that was needed.
Now you had a little bit of a change of pace when there was a major typhoon that came through, right?
Yes, that was in November. Typhoon Gilda, and at the time it was they hadn't had a typhoon for a long time, and this was a very large one. It blew off the gauge that said what it was. We were 3 days in the what I call the typhoon cave. It's in the mountain there. People came. The eye went right over the island, and it was sunshine and beautiful, and then it blew for a day and a half more. So my home, along with most of them on the island, were destroyed. The school was used as a shelter. The Red Cross came in, and I was put in charge of food distribution, the donated food and the USDA food. So I took particularly from Guam, there'd be cat food and jello and stew, and put them into piles as to what was usable and what people needed to be taught what it was or how to use it, and then took it around to each of the families. Some other ladies worked on clothing that was donated and sorted it by family. They said they picked me to do the food because I didn't have any family on the island and I would be impartial. So who knows? They told me how many people they were, and I did that for quite a while. And then finally, the school got going, and my mother was a school librarian in Massachusetts, and my hometown did a project with having people donate children's books, and they sent I don't know, like 50 boxes of books. And we were able to sort of redo a library because everything had been destroyed. And that later it was just in the classroom, but later that became the Rhoda School Library. The CB built it, and another Peace Corps volunteer worked on it. So I did quite a bit with the reading to the children and working with the books and library.
What do you feel was the most important lesson you learned for yourself, or the way that your time in Rhoda affected your life the most, given your time there in the 1960s?
Well, that would definitely be the importance of family and sharing and caring for each other. You know, I was raised, you know, not in, I mean, without, I don't want to say, you just weren't as warm and helping of everybody in the family as the people on Rhoda were. And people, you know, sometimes there'd be a knock on the door, and it would be in the middle of the night, and it would be a string of fish. Because people knew I was, or there'd be a stalk of bananas when I got home from school. Because people knew I was working. They knew where I was and what I was doing. If I helped a child after school, there'd be mangoes sitting around, which I'm allergic to. But, so I think this looking out for each other and the value of family, and then having everything destroyed in the typhoon, you know, what became, and we had, you know, other times when we had to go to the caves when there was a warning. What was important became like my passport and some food. I mean, my emphasis on having things, my values changed in that way too, I think, as I proceeded through life, I guess.
You mentioned about having to go to a cave during typhoons. Which cave was that? And did like the whole community go there?
Yes, most of the community went either to the church or the cave is, as you come into Song Song Village, driving down the road, it's on the left. The Japanese used it as a hospital. There are steps that go up to it. Later they put down cement, but we were just on the dirt floor. Actually on the website I put together a little article about Typhoon Gilda and being in the cave if somebody was interested in seeing pictures. The men went out during the eye to get food because we didn't have enough food, and the people that were in the church came to the cave, and there were other caves along the cliffs up to the savannah that people stayed in. And nobody was injured during the typhoon. A child died after the typhoon, injured, but everybody sheltered safely.
Yeah, we're pretty good at hunkering down here in the Marianas and weathering out those storms. Well, you mentioned...
A lot of singing, card playing. I remember the smell of the gasoline, I guess, in the bottles, in the beer bottle. There'd be a smell, and everybody making the best of it. And afterwards, when we went out, it looked like winter, you know, and from my perspective, all the leaves and everything were gone. And as I say, most of the homes, we moved in with Jack and Maggie Norita. They had only lost the roof to their house. So that was a different living with a family. They had 2 rooms. Our house had 1 room with a fire, a place to make a fire at the end, kind of up on stilts. And their house had 2 rooms, and they had a little daughter, and she and I would speak Chamorro, and then everybody would laugh at me because my Chamorro was like a 3-year-old's language, not very good. But they took us in until we were able to build another 1-room house to live in.
So that actually wasn't the end of your time in the Marianas, because you came back later on to help create Northern Marianas College. How did that come about?
Well, I actually, when I came back to the States, I got my master's degree in teaching English as a second language. And I got a letter out of the blue asking if I would, this would be 1975, asking if I would come, and they were getting a Title VII Tomorrow English grant, and if I would come and set that up and implement it. And then we added Carolinian, got funding to have that. And we developed the materials, designed the curriculum, grade 1 to 3. I had 4 curriculum developers on my staff. We had an artist. All the schools were involved. We had teachers' aides in all the schools. And so we did a lot of training. And that developed into, as the Marianas was implementing being a Commonwealth, I was asked to do more and more with training, as there were people ready to run the Chamorro program and the Carolinian program, and I wasn't. So I was asked to stay and work with the Commonwealth funds for training. Then the governor called me in and asked me to establish a college, which was a whole new thing to do for me. But we had a lot of support in the Commonwealth, and so that was established by let's see, I don't even know if I have my notes here. I was ready to talk about Rhoda, my experiences on Rhoda here. Executive Order 25. And then as we proceeded, then we got the college established by legislation, had a graduation, got a candidacy for accreditation. I was appointed president by the board. And at that point, the college was pretty stable. We were making arrangements to move to a new site, which is part of why I have the collection we're going to talk about. And my mother was very ill in Massachusetts, had cancer, and died 7 or 8 months after I got home. So I was anxious to help my family back in the States. And the college was ready to stand on its own. I remember Louis Lemus, I had planned to leave a year earlier, and whenever Louis he was on my staff, he'd say, "Kit, let's go for a walk." And then he said, "Kit, you can't leave yet. You can't leave your baby. It's not ready." And I had great respect for Louis' opinion. And did you know him? He's
Yes.
a wonderful man.
Yes, he's my uncle.
So that was then I left the Marianas in 1983. Had been my family lived in Massachusetts, and fortunately I was accepted at Harvard, so I was able to combine going to graduate school and being with my mother and father for her illness. It's hard to be. One problem with the Marianas, it's a long way away when you have family concerns.
It certainly is. You've mentioned a couple times this collection that is actually available online for anybody who's interested. Let me just start off by giving the website. It's kpvcollection.com, kpvcollection.com. What is this collection all about? Seems like you're putting a lot of time and energy into it.
I am. About 5 years ago, the collection has 2 parts to it. I knew I had all these slides and pictures that I had taken on Rhoda, and realized that virtually nobody had a camera when I lived on Rhoda, except the Peace Corps and contract people. Also, I had about 100 audio tapes I'd sent my parents and all sorts of other things. So I thought I could send those to the Marianas, but at that point in time, nobody wanted them, quite frankly. And then I checked the Kennedy Library and other libraries, and they wanted me to sign them over. They wouldn't guarantee they'd be shown. They'd just pack them away somewhere. So I have this young man helping me with all things digital. He's been helping me for 5 years. Lives in Colorado now, Michael Sousa. And the Northern Marianas Humanities Council, Scott Russell, was on a trip in the States, and he came up to my house to see what I had and said the Humanities Council could help. So we digitized all my slides, created a website, and put them up there. I didn't even know I could have a website so that we could share them. And this way I got wonderful emails from people on Rhoda who were seeing pictures of their auntie and their mother and father and different people. And then some other Peace Corps volunteers, we'd had a reunion of ones who'd been in the Marianas, asked if they could add their pictures. So now we actually have pictures from 15 different volunteers. And we had to redesign, and we're trying now to get captioning on all the pictures and to have it correct. And this is something your listeners can help with. They can go to the website and they can add captions in a program called Flickr. So that will allow people to search. People ask me, do you have a picture of this or that or somebody else? And this point, it's even hard for me to remember who people are and if we have it. And now we've got one of the volunteers sent in like 500 pictures, Rebecca and Dan Wilson. They were on Rhoda and Saipan, but she's not able to do the captioning. So those are available for anyone to look at or to add information. Last week we worked, Felicidad Dahl Castro Bodie and Rosemary Casey fixed a lot of mistakes, went through and misspellings and added names, and so that's the picture part. And the other part is at one point the college library was at my house because it was typhoon proof, and we didn't have a location yet. And when I moved, those boxes, I didn't have much to take back, by the movers anyway, sent them all to Massachusetts rather than to the college. When I contacted the college if I could send them all these boxes, they didn't want them. They didn't have a place at that time. They weren't set up for it. So they sat and they sat and they sat. So we've been arranging those, putting them in order, and digitizing them, so that now you can go to the collection side and you can read. We've digitized a box of Chamorro materials, a box of Carolinian materials. About half of the collection is these materials that were supposed to go to the college, and the other half is what I collected over the years. Books, and I bought everything that Pacificana Books had, like 20 boxes when they went out of business and such. So right now it's kind of both. And I'm trying to put together, to finish up what isn't posted yet. The audio's not posted because it's not labeled, it's all mixed up, but it's digitized. I'm working on I'm trying to put the visual and the audio and the paper together. So, for example, 1968 Rhoda graduation. I have audio of the graduation, I have pictures, and I have the program. And so, since I'm home with the virus, not with it, since I'm home, unable to go out, I'm hoping I can put together some of these things for people to share.
It's going to be amazing to see what people come up with during this time of quarantine or self-quarantine, because this project, as I said, sounds quite intensive, and I think we're very lucky to have you there in Massachusetts putting it together for all of us.
Well, I want to encourage people to send me an email with names. I was reviewing some of the things that I like to do on Rhoda, and I was looking at some of the pictures, and one was to go to the Beehive Bakery in the morning to get little loaves of bread. But I don't know the name of the woman who's there doing the baking. We're making Roschetti, and there's a little girl there. That's album 47, Rhoda Baker. If somebody knew who that was and who the little girl was, then I could add that.
Aww.
So I realize I'm being a little pushy here, but it would be lovely to have names.
Well, everybody's got plenty of time on their hands right now, so this is probably a good time to ask for help. And again, that website is kpvcollection.com if you'd like to see what's there or help out with identifying people in the pictures. Dr. Kit, thank you so much for making time for us today. I want to give you an opportunity for any closing thoughts before we go.
Well, my main closing thought would be that during this time when we're at risk, the people in the Marianas are used to being at risk with the typhoons and are used to being resourceful. I think this has become more difficult as more Western people have gotten more used to buying things out of stores and such. But I would just encourage that we look back at the history and our families and our memories and the values and share. I think that's share and see if we can come together in peace with health.
Thank you so much. I said thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Can I mention that the mayor of Rhoda, Crispin, Dwayne Maratita, the resident department head for the Department of Community and Cultural Affairs, has offered to help, and Crispin Ogo, the Indigenous Affairs Officer from the Office of the Governor, and Leo Pangilinan, of course, the Northern Marianas Humanities Council, and Jonas Barcinas. These are all people that know about the project, and there's many, many more, but that's a few of them. In fact, I was working with Jean Olapai yesterday. She was helping me label some buildings. So as I find people that can help, I ask.
Our guest
so
today.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Our guest today has been Dr. Kit Porter Van Meter. She was here during the Peace Corps times in the Marianas and helped create Northern Marianas College and has an online collection of her things that she has documentation on from the Marianas, Micronesia, and the Pacific. You can check it out at kpvcollection.com, or you can contact her if you would like through that website. Dr. Kit, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry.
This program was supported by a We the People grant awarded to the Northern Marianas Humanities Council from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities or the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.